You who don't,
Now do I know?
okay, this should look good on video. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sandy Rasmussen. I am on the board of Main Street. I have worked with the Arts and Cultural District designation. First time in 2013, the second time in 2018, when we finally got the approval to go finish the task of getting the final designation, which Main Street has worked on all through all that whole activity. But we had a whole long checklist of things we had to do. There's a whole committee that was put together from various organizations, just regular people, whatever, have been working on that for representing like farming and descendants and art and history and all the above. And we've been working on that for a year. And then we got a grant from New Mexico Main Street last year to do our cultural plan because we realized that that's over everybody's head. We all have areas of expertise, and that was not anybody on Main Street's in their list of things they could do. So we hired Michelle Negrete, who is also with New Mexico Main Street, but she has a whole lot of other background that is perfect for us. So I'm going to introduce Michelle Negrete because she has the knowledge of the whole plan.
Thanks, Sandy. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out this afternoon. As Sandy said, my name is Michelle Negrete, and I am with Strata Design, and I'm also a consultant with New Mexico Main Street. And I am very pleased to be working with Corrales on this Arts and Cultural District plan. And so just a couple of housekeeping things. Because we're doing hybrid, I think we have 3 people on Zoom. I'm not sure how many people.
Still have 3, yes.
Okay. And can you verify that they can hear us okay? Angela, if you can hear us, can you send me a text message? Or if somebody else.
This is Lynn. We can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So because we're doing this hybrid and we want to have this is being videotaped, this presentation, so that for those who are not able to attend, they can access this and see the presentation. So that everything gets clearly into the record, what we'd like to do is have people write down questions and comments. And then at the end of the presentation, Sandy will grab that piece of paper, hand it to me, and then I will read it into the record and answer it as best I can, or direct you to whoever can do that. And then the Zoom people will have a different strategy where they will have to raise their hand and be called on. Did I miss anything about housekeeping? No. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that before I go? Okay, great. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you access this video you're talking about?
So the question was, where do we access the video? This video will be posted to the village's web YouTube site, but not on the village website. So you have to go to the village YouTube site to get that. Yeah, if you go to YouTube and search Village of Corrales, it'll bring up their site, and you can subscribe and it'll let you know every time we put up a new video.
That's great information. Thank you. And we will put a link and a copy of the handouts that we're putting today on the Corrales Main Street website as well. So can you bring up the presentation and let me know how I advance? Do I just let you know?
Yeah, you just have to stay next.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So the first part of the presentation, I just want to give people a little bit of overview and background about arts and cultural districts. And then we'll kind of talk about what we heard at the last meeting. And then we'll go into kind of the goals and strategies. And then we'll talk about kind of the next steps in the process. So next slide, please. Okay, so what's a state authorized arts and cultural district? It was created by the state legislature in 2007. And it's a program that is coordinated by New Mexico Main Street in partnership with New Mexico Arts. We also have partnerships with historic preservation, and depending on what resources are available, tourism and other aspects of cultural affairs. The goal of a state authorized arts and cultural district is to promote and support the exceptional history and art of New Mexico. So it's a recognition of our communities in New Mexico that are rich in culture, heritage, and the arts. And a district isn't just a seal of approval. It is an effort that through the collaboration of the local community builds upon those local cultural and historic assets to create a vibrant and thriving community. Next slide, please. So the vision of the Corrales Arts and Cultural District is a vibrant arts and entertainment destination for residents, visitors, that is anchored in our local heritage and creates economic vitality for our community. And it's supported through a local partnership between Corrales Main Street, the Village of Corrales, and the local Arts Council, which is Corrales Cultural Art Council. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this effort is to position arts and culture as the center of revitalization and community economic development efforts. And arts and cultural districts must demonstrate positive economic impact. And that can come in many forms: job creation, business development, business creation, expansion, private sector investment, and or enhancement of the economic environment. Main Street, Corrales Main Street is a program of New Mexico Main Street, and the National Main Street program works with transformation strategies, and each community is required to have at least 2 transformation strategies. And Corrales Main Street has developed this as one of their transformation strategies. Grow the creative economy of Corrales by supporting creative entrepreneurs and businesses, increasing cultural offerings and activities, and promoting the unique community assets. Next slide, please. So the benefits of becoming a state authorized arts and cultural district is state branding and marketing of the program, a doubling of historic tax credits, technical assistance through cooperating state agencies, use of local economic development funds for cultural facilities and organizations, an ACD resource team that comes out and gives input, and that happened in 2018 for this community. Resources to complete the Arts and Cultural District Plan, which is what we're talking about through this process. Coordinated strategy for district projects and program development, and then access to New Mexico Main Street capital outlay funds and New Mexico Resiliency Alliance grants. So what is the, that should say Cultural Economic Development Plan. It is the roadmap for supporting arts and cultural district work. And so the purpose of the plan is to work with the community to come up with strategies to implement actions for the visions, goals, and values. It's funded, as Sandy said, by a grant from New Mexico Main Street. There's no local tax dollars spent on this effort. It's tailored to the local community. So this effort builds upon years of work that has happened in the community, all the planning sessions and plans and reports that have happened in the community, an extensive inventory of assets, and then meetings with stakeholders and community members. And then this is a requirement also, as Sandy said, for becoming a state arts and cultural district, the cultural plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just kind of a little graphic that talks about how the Arts and Cultural District is built. So generally it begins with a local Main Street program. And after applying, they become a startup program and they get support from Main Street and the local government. And then after kind of that startup process, then there's an economic development plan in place. And then once the plan is finished, it goes for approval with the New Mexico Arts is the approval body. And then the work begins, and that's kind of, you know, balancing community interests and community needs that are outlined in the plan. Next slide. So the pathway to becoming an arts and cultural district began with the startup phase, and it kind of, that process culminates with a cultural plan. That plan needs to be adopted locally. And then New Mexico Main Street will make a recommendation to New Mexico Arts for state authorization. And then the New Mexico Arts Commission votes to approve that authorization. Next slide, please. So the planning process really began many, many years ago and has been ongoing. I said the local Main Street becomes a ACD startup, and they go through a series of benchmarks that they are required to do before getting funding for a arts and cultural district plan. And then the planning process for the plan includes an analysis of the existing conditions. So that's the asset inventory I mentioned, and a review of the previous planning efforts. Community surveys. We had 3 community surveys that have been open throughout the year. We had over 100 responses. They were available online and physically. We also had a station at over 12 community events where we provided an opportunity for people to come and talk to us and to acquire a paper survey or a QR code link to the surveys. We met with over 20 stakeholder groups. These are arts and cultural organizations in the community, and got feedback. And then from those, we developed 6 focus groups sessions that collaborated between all of those stakeholders to get more input and feedback. And then strategy development, we started to kind of create the goals and objectives for the plan based on all the input. And then we moved into our community meeting process, where we wanted to kind of ground truth and solicit more feedback from the community based on the information that we had collected through the stakeholder process. So what I want to do now, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, some of you may have to share. I have handouts, and we will make these available online for those of you that are on Zoom, or anybody else who needs a link. But these are summaries of all the comments that we had at our last meeting, which was on June 19th at Village Pizza. And I see a lot of you here today that were there, and I really appreciate the time that you spent and the comments that you provided. So I'll pass this around. So these are organized by each of the goals. And so for anybody who provided feedback, you should see it on there. Sorry, I'm gonna get some water. Okay. All right, great. Next slide, please. So, the Arts and Cultural District boundary for Corrales, is kind of two areas. Corrales has a Arts and Cultural District and Arts and Cultural Compound. So the compound consists of the old church, Casa San Isidro, and the cemetery. And the district itself consists of the area that you can see there on the map. Through this process, we've expanded the map a little bit to include some of the village property where the rec center is and the library, because those are considered part of the local creative and cultural economy. Next slide, please. Sandy, what's this? Thanks, my vision's not that good. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of a summary of what we heard in our meeting and what we've heard from the stakeholder input and the focus group input at a very high level. As you can see, there's a lot of detail. So we've heard an interest in seeing balanced growth and development, balancing resources for community needs, a need to control growth in a manner that ensures character, support for local businesses, farmers, and creatives, preservation of agricultural land and uses, protection and rehabilitation of historic structures, newcomer education about Corrales' character and environment, sensitivity to mixed residential and commercial areas, focus on needs and interests of locals. We've also heard that the community has limited resources. Some of these include a limited volunteer pool, limited funding for programs and staffing, limited access to the available public facilities, limited water, and limited developable area. We've heard that there are space challenges, that there's not a lot of public meeting spaces. There's limited spaces for classrooms and learning, limited spaces for community programming, limited venues for performing arts, limited gallery and studio spaces, limited opportunities for direct sales, and this is for farmers, artists, and other makers. That there is limited space for agricultural storage and resource sharing. So that's kind of like cold storage and dry storage and things like that. There's limited space for community gatherings and events, limited access to commercial kitchens, and limited retail spaces. We've also heard a lot of things about local engagement, that there's challenges getting information to locals, that events don't feel welcoming to locals, that there is limited volunteers, challenges reaching community youth, limited cross-pollination and engagement between arts and agriculture and numerous organizations, need for agricultural community representation, interest in local networking opportunities, and that many local businesses don't serve local needs, and that includes hours, goods, and services. And then we've heard some comments about public safety and public amenities, and these include things that I'm sure everybody here is very familiar with, that it's difficult to cross Corrales Road. It's unsafe to walk across along Corrales Road, that there's a need to educate people about the multimodal environment, that there are horses and mules and tractors, that there is a lack of public restrooms in the recreation area, and that there's too much traffic and speeding. Next slide, please. And so I'm going to hand this out because on one page, so it makes it a little easier. So these are the ACD plans and goals. And we shared these at the the meeting we had in June. And I'll just go through the highlights, because everybody here should have a piece of paper that has everything on it. And I don't want to take too much of your time. So goal 1 is foster local participation and engagement in the Arts and Cultural District. And that's really about supporting what locals are interested in and having things for locals to do that interest locals and getting more locals involved and participating in the district. The second goal is to ensure that agricultural heritage remains visible and active in the district. So that's that there's active farming, active preservation of farmlands. We heard in a lot of our community input that the sights and sounds of animals and agriculture are really important to the character of the community. Number 3, make village culture and history as inclusive and accessible as possible to increase local awareness, pride, and community support of local heritage and culture. So this is really about making sure that the legacy, the cultural legacy, and the history of the community stays strong. And a lot of this relates to next generation, making sure community youth have a hand in an understanding of the local heritage and culture. Number 4 is cultivate a supportive ecosystem for local artists, entrepreneurs, and creatives. And this is about, making sure that people are connected, local artists and other cultural organizations have partnerships and alliances to take and maximize local resources, building events that are existing by including new organizations and expanding participation to draw new audiences, and making sure that there are places for local artists and local makers and local entrepreneurs to make a living off of their craft and their creations. So we're wanting people, there's a lot of home businesses in the community. There are a lot of artists that can't afford to have a space in the district. And so looking for ways, partnering with organizations for opportunities for supporting those people in the community. And then finally, supporting the unique arts and agricultural environment. And this is really about looking for ways for cross-pollination between arts and agriculture, and to keep both of these as very strong components of the community. Next slide, please. So what are the next steps in this process? We are going through the draft plan and comment period starting on July 18th. So we will be making the draft of the plan available for review and comment. And then there will be a presentation on July 23rd to the Village Council. And then if that is supported, there will be a recommendation to New Mexico Arts. And then New Mexico Arts Commission will meet on August 15th to hear why Corrales should be an arts and cultural district. And then they will vote to either approve or to, they'll have either things that they want to see or they will say no. And then there will be, from that point, the opportunity to engage in that arts and cultural district work. Next slide. So thank you for all of your participation. We'll now kind of do comments and questions, but I want you to kind of note that there's a website, visit Corrales.com, which is Corrales Main Street's website. And there's a link on that for the Arts and Cultural District. And we will be uploading the information and hopefully the link to YouTube on that page. We'll also provide a link to the documents that you've gotten here today. And so one other thing that I wanted to kind of hand out is kind of an overview of the goals, objectives, and strategies and actions that we kind of came up with at our last meeting. And so these are also things that you can kind of look at and and share amongst each other. So each stapled is a different goal. So there's 5 goals. So you can kind of look at a goal, and when you're done, pass it to your neighbor. So if you guys have any comments or questions, like I said, if we could write them on the piece of paper, and Sandy will go around and bring them to me, and then I'll read them into the mic and provide as much information as I can on your question. Okay, Sandy, you want to?
I have a question.
Wait, you have to, Sandy, you have to come up here and say.
At our last pizza party, everybody put in comments, and those have been implemented into another draft
So
Do
that's
we-
what they have.
of the whole plan.
No, just for the way.
Oh. So, but that plan will be up on the Main Street website. So
Yes.
I ask you to go to Visit Corrales and send your friends to visitcorrales.com and actually read that document. It's hard. One of the things on there is getting the word out to everybody. It ain't easy in this town. So share with your friends, tell them to read that, and they can comment to that still.
Yeah, there's still.
If there's some big thing, I mean, and this is a very high level plan. And I invite all of you to give your input on activities that come out of this plan that are for the village. It shouldn't just be Main Street and all the organizations. Obviously, I don't see you in the organization thing. So there's a lot of people out there that can have the opportunity to have a say. You just got to speak up and find Visit Corrales and say it nicely.
Is that draft plan the same one that we distributed on the 27th of June?
So because we have to read this into the record, I'll answer this one, but let's just kind of stick to the writing it down. Yes. So the question was, if there is a draft that's going to come out that is different than kind of what you've been handed out. So if we could go back to the presentation to the timeline. Okay. Yeah, there you go. All right. So on July 18th, the draft will be made available on the Corrales Village website. Okay. And then there is a period of time that you can provide comments. And then you can also provide comments at the village council session on July 23rd.
So the plan will be part of the public packet for the village council meeting. So you'll go to the village website, go to the meeting for July 23rd, click on the agenda packet. That gets posted on Friday by 5 o'clock.
Do you want to? I think I'm loud enough. So the draft plan and comment, you said it's going to be on the village website. It'll also be on the Main Street website. Okay. You can go to 2 weeks.
Okay, Sandy, do you want to collect some of the?
Just one of them. I'm gonna wait. So they, what they speak.
Do you have any colorful? I said, well, you got any? What?
She wants.
She has.
She has to read them into the microphone.
Okay, so the first question is, will this go to a vote of the people? So no, this does not get put on a ballot for a vote. This is something that the village councilors will hear. They will take into consideration the comments. It's kind of a planning process, but it's not a public vote. What infrastructure will be needed? I'm not sure if that's for the district or the plan. So the plan is a very high level plan and it opens doors for funding and for projects and for collaborations. So it doesn't specifically call out for any direct infrastructure to get this done. It does call attention to the fact that there are public safety issues, but it doesn't say, for example, we need a road with sidewalks. Are you planning on a large auditorium? So again, this plan does not call out for specific projects like a large auditorium. It calls out for an exploration for any kind of like I said, we have space needs. So it will say things like assess the existing available spaces and determine what needs. It does also make recommendations to consider appropriate uses of space and development. But again, this is not a low-level plan. It doesn't have actions that are like build a performing arts center. It says that there is a need for performance spaces and that there needs to be an additional study to understand what spaces are available and how they meet community needs. What are the names of the stakeholders? That's a great question. So the stakeholders are not individual people, they're organizations in the community. There is a list that is in the plan of everybody, all the organizations that we talk to. But we talk to all of the arts and cultural district, arts and cultural organizations that are active in the community. So this includes the Corrales Society of Artists. We talk to the Historical Society. We talk to Kiwanis Village in the Village. We talk to 20 different organizations that are active in the community. And we have meeting summaries from all of those meetings that if people are interested in seeing what was discussed, we can share. Let's see. Are villagers stakeholders? Yes, indeed. Villages are definitely stakeholders. And so that's why the input session that we had at the Village Pizza was so important. And I'm so glad that we had such a great turnout. And opportunities like this, again, are very important. And as we move into the comment period, again, that is important. Says 100 responses to a survey is not very many. Will you advertise the next one? So this survey was advertised in many, many ways. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sandy, because we started this survey about 18 months ago, and we advertised it in many ways. So we put it out in the mayor's message. We put it out in the Corrales MainStreet News. Do we put it in the comment? I think we put it in the comment. We put QR code flyers all around town and in local businesses. We set up stations at the Growers Market, at Viva Corrales, and at several other, I think the garden tour and a couple of other community events with station and QR code and paper copies. So that's how the survey was put out. And we sent as many emails out as we could. We, all of the stakeholder people that we talked to, we left information with the QR code and paper surveys to distribute to their members. And when we had any information about any meetings or anything that we were putting on, we provided all that information to all of our stakeholders and asked them to share it with their lists and their networks as well. What percentage of the population are artists? That's a really good question, and I don't know if we can actually give hard data on that because people don't fill out a census form or something like that that says I'm an artist. We do have information, I don't have it in front of me, but it's in the plan on how many arts and cultural businesses and what types they are. And we have a lot of arts and cultural businesses, organizations that aren't in the district that are operating out of people's homes. It's very, very rich community. Let's see, what exactly will you build? Well, I'm not gonna actually build anything, and I don't think that the district's intent is to build anything. The plan calls out for collaboration and issues and opportunities, but it doesn't mandate that anything happens. It identifies potential strategies, but that has to have buy-in from the community. It's not, Main Street's not gonna go out there and start building anything. They are not that type of an organization. Let's see, what will Corrales look like in 5 years? I don't have a crystal ball. I really don't. I can tell you that based on the demographics, the population is declining and aging. And that the birth rate is down. I can't tell you what the property values will be. I can't tell you what's going to be built. That's, just kind of what the market will bear and what the demand is for people to be in Corrales. The Arts and Cultural District is really about providing resources and opportunities for local artists, for farmers, for people working in the agricultural community here, to continue making a living from what they're doing. It's not about building more homes, building more anything. There may be some resources that can be guided to create things to support the existing farmers and businesses and artists and other locals. But that's something that's either going to have to happen as an individual developer, person that owns their own property. It's going to have to happen through grants that are done in partnership with organizations functioning in the community. It's going to have to happen with funding that's coming from the village and through the council. And most of those have a public process for community engagement. Vibrant Village exists. What does Corrales Main Street add by bringing additional traffic? So I'm not sure exactly what this question refers to with respect to the cultural plan, but I will try and kind of make a link. So if I were to say that this is asking what does having a arts and cultural district and a cultural plan add by bringing additional traffic, I would say that there's no guarantee that it's going to bring additional traffic or reduce traffic. The plan calls for things like creating parking strategies, creating more communication between organizations that are having events, trying to create more events and things for locals, sharing resources. So instead of multiple organizations having events, maybe some of those events can be consolidated. But this is not necessarily about adding traffic or things like that. Who needs who? Village of Corrales or Corrales Main Street? That I don't think I'm prepared to answer. I don't know exactly how Village of Corrales or Corrales Main Street would answer that question, so I'm not really in a position, but if says who needs who, Village of Corrales or Corrales Main Street? So if there's somebody from the Village of Corrales that wants to take a hand at that question, or Corrales Main Street?
I'm not sure what.
Who needs who, Village of Corrales or Corrales Main Street? So because this one's a little vague, does the person that wrote this question want to come up here and explain it into the microphone, and then maybe Okay. Yes, okay. Please come up and just introduce yourself, and then if you want to just take a minute to.
Sure. Pat McLean, 2968 Corrales. My question was, are we benefiting the state by doing this? Or are we benefiting Corrales? We're a very wealthy community located next to the largest metro. 40–50% of the population in New Mexico exists within 10 miles of Corrales. So do we need to attract more people to come to Corrales, or would New Mexico Main Street as an organization like to have a vibrant community like Corrales? Who needs who? That was my question.
Okay, well, I think I can try and answer that a little bit from the state Main Street program's perspective. So the state Main Street program is a resource of the state economic development. And so the purpose of the program is to support local communities. The local communities are not supporting us. We provide technical assistance, grants, and resources to our network of 32 communities. And it's not something that, we don't get any tax dollars from the community. We don't get any, any impact in that way. So I don't think that is that New Mexico Main Street is looking to add to Corrales in order to get any kind of funds from the community, if that's your question. It's more about the resources that we can provide to your community because you're an arts and cultural district. You get access to New Mexico Main Street capital outlay funding. You get access to, I believe now we're growing to 12 technical assistants ranging in support from architects to people that help with organization and volunteer development, to people that help with graphic design and things like that. We provide technical assistance as well, helping local businesses with their marketing, technology, interfacing, trainings. We provide lots of videos and Zoom meetings and things like that, where we provide trainings to local community members and our local organizations. And we network a lot, where other communities that are in our network share their resources, what they've done, lessons learned. So it's really, it's an asset-based community development model, New Mexico Main Street is. And so we are here to support and serve the local communities. We don't ask anything except for our local communities to be in good standing, which requires an orderly reporting on a lot of the things that they do in the community. Arts markets are the first. Sorry, I'm going to have you read this. I can't read it.
I said the art makers, they're the first one to be replaced.
Sorry, into the microphone.
Historically, the starving artists are the first ones that leave. The makers don't want to live in chaos. So because of rising costs, they're the first. The art makers are the first to leave a community. And so I just want to try to balance. We're trying to support an art community. Do we support it by sheltering them or bringing in business? Big art sold through galleries. It's not sold on weekends as much. I mean, there's a lot of non-professional artists. I am one of those who doesn't sell work, but I think there's a big difference when we talk about art markets. What is art, how it's sold, where it's sold, and bringing more traffic to Corrales, sell art in Corrales. That it's just that kind of question.
Okay, great. That's a great question. So when we talk about art and culture in New Mexico Main Street. And I apologize for not having this as a graphic, but we have what we call the creative economy wheel. And I think those of you who were at our meeting a couple weeks ago had a chance to look at that. And so the creative economy is many, many sectors. So it includes, you know, what we often think of as art, which are the visual arts, right? Fine arts, painting, sculpture, photography. And that's just one component. And a lot of that, yes, is sold in galleries, and gallery and fine art sales has changed drastically. It's a lot less of a site visit at a gallery, and there's a lot more online sales and things like that. But it also includes everything from graphic design to communications, which is like local newspapers, poetry, writers groups, film. It includes food, agriculture, health, beauty, and wellness. So it's very expansive and inclusive. The built environment, cultural preservation, history. So what we're talking about is not just trying to do things for artists, but for the whole creative economy here in Corrales. And Corrales is really unique in that you actually have assets in every single sector of the creative economy. It's very broad, which is great. You know, most of the communities we try to kind of expand and get more inclusion in some of the other sectors, but you guys are very broad, and I think that makes for a very resilient community. But I think the question that you touched on is really about, you know, what strategy is best, right? Is it bringing more people in? Is it sheltering the artists? And I think, you know, that's going to vary from the type of person to the type of art that you're doing. I think a lot of it is about creating a community that attracts and keeps people from multiple generations. And that requires, you know, having affordable places to live, safe places for families, and amenities and things that people in the community value. And so, you know, that's about kind of creating that balance, right? So this plan talks about all of that. And if you look at like the actions and strategies in this plan, every single one of those has come from somebody in this community. This is not a top-down approach. This is an approach that takes what we hear and organizes it in a way that's implementable. So this is an effort that builds upon what we hear, and then we share it with a larger group, and then we hear that, and then that becomes what you see in this plan. Let's see. How does this address the negative effects of traffic and tourism on the village? Okay, so the plan does suggest that there are parking studies and ways of managing traffic, ways of helping, you know, calls attention to the fact that there's unsafe situations. Many of these things have been known to the community for a long time. Many of these things are things that are a long game, right? So, you know, what the plan does is continue to have that opportunity to discuss the problems. It doesn't say do this, this, and this to fix it. It says things like, you know, look for ways to manage traffic, look for ways to educate people coming into the community about the fact that there are, you know, horses and people, bicycles, tractors, that people live and work in the district. So, you know, it doesn't give direct specifications on what to do. It provides opportunities that we've heard from community members. And then it's kind of up to the community to figure out how best to get that done. Corrales is located adjacent to a metro area, doesn't need advertising, tourism. Why not spend money on communities? Okay. So there's a lot here. So advertising and tourism is something that, is a choice for the community to do, and there's many ways for the community to do that. And there's also many ways for the community to focus on themselves, right? So the plan calls for programming for youth. It calls for opportunities for local residents and activities for locals and businesses for locals. And it calls for things that support local businesses. How that happens is up to the community. The more you get engaged with the Main Street program, the Main Street process works through the 4 points. And if you look at how these actions are broken out, they're broken out in order to implement committee work. So the 4 points are focused around, one is design, one is around organization, one is around economic vitality, and one is around promotion. And this is part of the national Main Street model. And so if you want to have any kind of impact in those areas, then work with New Mexico Main Street. It's a volunteer program and it is a community resource. But the things called out in this plan will only happen or won't happen if people in the community are involved. Paralysis. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not sure if this is like a continuation of the last one, but it says that need tourism. Something Maxwell to can carry, etc. Is this a continuation of the previous question or is it a different one? Okay. How do you preserve history, culture when introducing additional traffic? Well, I think at the end of the day, in order to preserve history and culture, the community needs to be actively engaged in preserving history and culture. If nobody is doing that, then you're going to lose it. It doesn't matter if there's traffic or not. So I think at the end of the day, if you want to preserve your history and culture, you're going to need to figure out what makes sense to do that. Some of the suggestions that we've heard and that you'll see in the plan are engaging local youth, working with the schools, providing opportunities for local residents to participate in arts and culture, providing networking opportunities for people to cross-pollinate between organizations and collaborate. But I don't really think introducing additional traffic is the end goal. I think the end goal is to preserve the history and culture. And so some of that has to do with, figuring out places to archive. We've heard that. Places to show and feature local history and community, places where people can share stories. And we have been working with Corrales Main Street to provide the technical equipment for historical data to be captured through oral histories. And other organizations can also leverage those resources to do that as well. Let's see, focus on local sustainable practices versus regional. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe you could come up and give me a little bit more on this one.
Let me say that I support local versus regional. I support our businesses. I think they're valuable businesses in our community. I'm not against that. What I don't want to see is that we bring in hordes of people from Albuquerque. We're a bedroom community. The majority of the people that work here commute to Albuquerque daily, and they have the opportunity to buy locally or not. I try to support every event, shopping locally, but I think that when we get a regional advertisement to bring people from the state, from out of state to Corrales, basically tourism, whether it's focused on art, local businesses, I think we have to be prepared to mitigate the problems that come with that. And so those are my questions. I don't know how we, if we focus locally, we stay locally, if everybody were mandated to buy locally that lives here, then we could support it. We have declining population, so we don't need increasing business for declining opportunity. We just want people that live here to spend their money here. Not invite people from Colorado to come spend money. Well, you don't have to read any more of my questions.
Okay. All right, so I will just kind of touch on that one and then I'll go to the next one here. So I think you made a very good point, right? And I think that's something that we've heard over and over and over through this process is that people want more locals to be, involved in the district and more locals, events for locals, programs for locals, amenities for locals, right? But we've also heard a lot from stakeholders and from local businesses that they're not getting participation from local residents. And so their option is to go somewhere else to stay alive, right? So it's up to the community to support the local businesses and the local organizations if you want them to survive and not have to draw from outside of the community. And so the plan does bring that to light. We've heard this over and over again. And it's also important for preserving the local history and culture, right? If you're not engaging in the local and history and culture as a local community, then it's not going to stay alive, right? So the plan definitely supports, and like you saw in kind of what we've heard and in our goals, we're hearing loud and clear that Corrales really wants it to be for locals.
And Michelle, Angela, I think would like to say a few words.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And thanks Michelle for being able to explain all of this so well. I just wanted to quickly, I guess, raise a question about the question because we've pondered it so much throughout this planning regarding that word regional and how, I guess I would be interested in how does it apply when it comes to the growers market, which is obviously our, most agriculturally based business that is an economic driver that requires regional participation to survive. So I guess, I would be super curious, if Mr. McLaren could sort of touch on like, what's the reconciliation for that specific scenario? Like if there's a feeling about like that and kind of how do we mitigate all the traffic that comes in for that? And is that something that's supported, I guess, by this concern or concept? Is that something that is supported, or is that something that is undesirable from that perspective, considering that it's regional?
Good point.
Go ahead.
Yeah, good point. I think that's a good point. I don't argue that. There are things that I see locally that I've lived here for 50 years and I gone to Harvest Festival up until the last 5 years when I think it became so regional, became theater. It's no longer for the locals. It's for the outsiders. We're showing them, theater. And so I think that obviously the farmers have to survive. The farmers have to have commercial kitchens. They have to have programs. They have to have elements to support agricultural, to go beyond that. I think that is a good point. We do need support, and there are things that are benefited from outsiders. I'm not putting the toll gate at the south end and saying you can't come. That's obviously not the solution, but I think we need to manage things I don't think anybody can argue that Harvest Festival is for the locals anymore. It's, yeah. Even the vendors come from Los Ranchos. The vendors come from all over. They don't come from Corrales. There's not that many. The farmers market, the growers market got kicked out at Harvest Festival. They were displaced from their usual location, and so they lost out. They're pleading to stay in their exact location. So, there are things like that that I think that we need to mitigate, particularly when we think about regional versus local, and whether it's a farmer or a merchant, there are special occasions that they should be supported, obviously.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think that's sort of, you know, the same feeling. Obviously that hopefully the plan is conveying, but, as we carefully try to consider all these things, that's certainly one that, comes up a lot. So I appreciate it.
Okay, I think I have two more comments or questions here, and then I don't know if there's others that have come up in the process. What determines a need to improve the economic and social well-being of our community? What are we in need of? Okay, so I don't think that this is necessarily constructed as a need versus it's really more about how you choose to support your community. Every community has to have some kind of economic base, right? And so New Mexico Main Street is what's called an asset-based economic development program, and it's a community-based process. So economic development can happen where, a community, Rio Rancho, let's use that as an example, courted intel and said, hey, come to our community, bring jobs, bring money, right? So the big company comes to the community, houses are needed, stores are needed, and the story of Rio Rancho, right? So that is an economic development model that a lot of big communities use, right? They bring in jobs. Asset-based economic development works the other way around. It says, what do we have in our local community that we can build upon to bring dollars into our community? Now, those dollars can come regionally, they can come nationally, and they can come from the local community members, okay? But that's what the Main Street program is about. It's about building off of the people that are here, the assets that you have, the artists, the farmers. This is not about saying, let's get more businesses here. This is saying, let's provide opportunities to people that are here to start more businesses, expand businesses. It gives our community youth a reason to stay in the community because there's place that they can sustain themselves, earn a living, and support their families instead of having to leave. This is a story we hear over and over in our small towns, that it's too expensive. There's no jobs. There's no way for young people to get into trade, a job. And so they leave, right? And then our communities are starting to age out, and there's no one here to kind of bring that next generation along and continue the heritage and traditions. So at the national level and at the state level, Main Street is a program that recognizes for our local communities to stay unique and healthy and not be a cookie cutter of every other community. You need to start with what's actually there and important to that community and build that up. Pride in the community, local people engaged and involved. And that's what this program is about. So when we talk about needs for the economic, social, and well-being of the community, it's to provide the resources and the tools and support for the people that are here doing what they're doing that make Corrales unique. If there isn't any resources to do that, then those people won't be able to continue what they're doing for long. And then Corrales slowly could become like any place else. So this plan is an attempt to direct resources and community actions around arts and culture and the heritage of the community so that it supports the uniqueness and works with what you have and isn't about bringing something new in that changes the dynamic. Sandy, you want to go or you want me to do the last one that I have? Okay. All right. Some citizens are concerned that the very qualities we believe make the village special will be impacted by more economic development. How do you respond? I think I covered that in my last answer. But basically, if people in the community want the very qualities that they care about to remain, they need to support the local businesses and the local farmers and look for ways to support each other. Because right now, what we hear are that local people, local residents aren't supporting the district and aren't participating in volunteer opportunities that help the organizations that help the local businesses and the local arts community and the local agricultural community. So these organizations have to expand their reach. So I think this is not necessarily an issue about trying to grow beyond what Corrales is known and loved for. It's about trying to sustain, maintain, and make resilient what the community has through the community's own efforts, supporting its own businesses, its artists and farmers. Are there any other questions? Sandy, do you want to just talk into the mic?
I just want to say that I was a Main Street director. There isn't one business here that I went looking for. They came on their own. Nobody wants this village to change what it is. We are so special. Our people are special. I want all the people, no matter what they think about anything, to start working together and come together and fix the issues. We need to fix issues. There's no doubt about that. But this plan is not to make, there'll be no neon signs. It's not to make things worse. It's to make things better. If we all can work together, we can plan things that maybe can mitigate these problems, but we need to work together.
It's actually a technical question.
Sorry, we have to be on the record. So if you could please just come up to the microphone. Thank you.
As I say, it's more of a technical question in turn. You outlined a rather aggressive schedule, the 18th, the 23rd, and it goes before the state on the 15th of August. How often does that state arts council meet? In other words, if we need more time for public input, do they meet quarterly, once a year? How often do they meet? I'm thinking a question with me.
Thank you for your question. New Mexico Arts Commission, they meet whenever they need to meet, but they meet quarterly is their schedule. So they meet August and then I think in November. And then I don't think they've put out their calendar for 2024-5 yet, but I think they usually meet sometime during the legislative session. And then again, I think in June. They've been moving their calendar around a little bit, but they do meet quarterly and then they meet if they need to meet to do whatever business they need to do.
Thank you, but very much on that same point, with regards to the schedule. Looking at the 18th and the 23rd, the availability, we have is it 54 pages or 84 pages? I don't know. It was 40. I started at 86. Thank you, Counselor. to be, but the community doesn't have that available just yet, if I'm understanding right, if I took it down right. That plan availability is gonna become available when at visitcorrales.com. When? And then I have just.
I believe it's the 18th of July.
And that's why I brought that issue up, because then we're looking at it on the 23rd. The community doesn't have an opportunity to look at it between the 18th and 20th, if they know where to find it, which is always hard. And if they're, challenged like I am on with my little computer over there. So that being stated, we need to be able to have the community take a look at that. And be subject to change, and then, that is subject to change because of the fact that, we're maybe getting a little bit confused with regards to what Main Street might say on their Main Street, New Mexico. They talk about revitalization. This is not revitalization. They talk about business development. This is not about business. This is about arts and culture. And we need to, that may even be run contrary to what it is, some of those other ones. We want to retain arts and culture. We don't want to revitalize it. We need to be able to hold on to it. So, and that's okay, because we've seen that, I've seen that happen up at the meetings years and years and years, many different times. We can remember 4th Street downtown, there was the cross. We need to retain it. We don't need to make it bigger and faster and move more quicker. So that being the case, the time period that we get this document out, I think is critical. And so we don't want to put ourselves behind the 8 ball like they did in Los Ranchos and say, we didn't get, the community didn't know what was really going on out there. So if we're going to have this, and it's a heavy lift, but it's good reading, because I think what people are saying is in there if they read it. But they can't read it between the 18th and the 23rd, that we're gonna take a look at it. Well, I'll be a little bit hesitant to say, now's the time to go, let's go ahead and make a move on it. Let's look it over, let's, digest it and see whether or not that is exactly what we want. And if we like parts of it, we highlight and enrich those. So keep that in mind, I think, with regards to the timing of that.
So I'm personally not in charge of the time of the schedule, but I would like to kind of also say that we've been kind of sharing things as we go along, and I understand that communication is complicated. But we also understand that very few people are going to read a draft that's 84 pages. And in all honesty, don't get overwhelmed, because I think at least 20 pages of that is an appendix that is really sharing opportunities and information about what we've done. So that's kind of just, if you need those resources or information. I think the plan itself is somewhere around 60 pages. But as we've gone through this process, we have, tried to share each section as we develop it and build. So we're hoping that, if people have been looking at what we've been sharing, they will be somewhat familiar with what, like the goals. We've shared them several times. And it won't be as an overwhelming read. And at least people will be coming to it with a little bit of familiarity. Any other questions or comments? Did you, sorry, you have to come up or write it down. I'm sorry.
So will the traffic studies be done before this ACB plan is approved, or are you gonna wait till after? We talked about that.
So traffic studies are an opportunity that the plan identifies. The traffic studies are not something that's, guaranteed to even happen. It will happen if it's important to the community to execute it. This is not a plan that directs anybody to do anything. It highlights what we've heard. It identifies opportunities that we've also heard from the community, but it doesn't mandate any actions. And so, it's really a way of compiling and consolidating what is important to this community and organizing it in a way that you can start doing things to move forward on stuff. But it doesn't say, you know, we need a traffic plan done by June 14th. Because in order to have a traffic plan, you need to understand what you really want to evaluate. Do you want to understand what kind of traffic is currently in the village? Do you want to understand what would happen if you put in a 200-seat venue? A traffic study is only good if you know what questions you want to ask. And so it needs to be tailored to specifically what you're trying to understand. Any other questions or comments?
So you,
Sorry, go ahead.
so you talked about supporting the agriculture community. What does that mean, support the agriculture?
So the plan outlines different things that we've heard from the community as far as the needs with respect to agriculture. We've heard that there is need for places for storage, cold storage and dry storage, that it's really hard to harvest because timing is unpredictable and labor is hard to get. We've heard that people are interested in farming, but want to have access to land to farm. And so the plan calls out for things like looking for opportunities to partner people that have agricultural land that they're not using with people that are interested in farming. I think the plan also talks about creating sort of a classified or bulletin board kind of way of communication where people can say, I'm looking for somebody to farm my land, or I'm looking for a place to graze 5 goats. And then people could, you know, say, oh, okay, I need that, and then can contact that person. So these are kinds of the things that the plan is raising up as opportunities. But it's not mandating any of those actions, and it's up to the people that have resources and access to put up some classified information on their websites, or if, you know, the board of MainStreet wants to take that on as a project. Any other comments or questions? Is there anybody online that has any comments or questions?
Angela wants to say a few words again.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, and I think I just wanted to respond to Leslie's question there, you know, about how to support, and I think we're working super closely with the growers market right now and trying to learn as much as we can about that kind of how question. But obviously this plan has been a really good opportunity to talk to everybody. But I would also sort of ask, is there, you know, if the community has specific ideas, like Leslie, do you have a specific idea about what that could look like, right? And I think the fact that we're in such good communication, we're open to all those ideas. Like if there is a how that you guys have specifically outlined, we'd love to know what it is, and, you know, try to maybe even seek funding or grants that are beyond kind of what Michelle answered. Because that's a super important thing is what's the how, you know, and the future of supporting all of this too. So, you know, we appreciate and we're open to any ideas.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of build off of what Angela said, that the plan doesn't only connect you with resources from MainStreet. So having an adopted plan allows the community to go for grants and other funding to get projects done, because it's a plan that's coming from the community's interests. And so, you know, if there's something that you want to get done and it's in the plan, then you have kind of that information to use to write that grant and to say in your grant application, you know, we have a plan and this funding will help us move forward toward our goals. So it's really a tool that helps align resources and focus the community on work in kind of these 5 goal areas that come from what we've heard from the community. And it's really just to kind of have people be on the same page and have something that they can kind of come together around.
Michelle, this is Sue Evitt. I can't figure out a way to raise my hand. I've been trying really hard. I've been looking at it for the whole time. Could I speak just for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
I just wanted to point out 2 things. First of all, the Corrales Main Street Board is comprised of residents of Corrales, several of whom are lifelong or multi-decade residents of Corrales, and there is no desire to change Corrales. And then secondly, the plan does not call for any projects at all. The only way that projects can be chosen and accomplished is through volunteer activity. Just like the Main Street board members are volunteers, we need lots more volunteers to join our board because we don't have the capacity to pursue any projects without more support from the community. That's all.
Hi, I'm Jessie Penrod. A lot of you know me. Just to add on to the support for the farmers and the growers. I've been sitting with Bonnie Gonzalez at the growers market for the past few Sundays, and she's been sharing with me her process of how they get vendors and how they get the word out. And, you know, we've just been directly working with them to create a fundraiser to support their group because it's another organization that's run by volunteers. And, you know, a lot of our volunteers are getting older and they need more support. So that's just something I've been spending my time doing, and Angela as well, just really identifying not how we can just talk about supporting our farmers, but what the farmers themselves really need. So just sitting with her and speaking with her, I've gotten to know a lot of that. And what I've heard is they do need a lot of support. So just
Thanks, Jesse. Any other questions, comments? Everybody online, okay?
Hey, Michelle, it's Angela again. I just want to, I know we've highlighted this, you know, in the past couple of council meetings, but a really good example of the how that Main Street is actively providing value to preserve the you know, preservation aspect is assisting with technical service for the T-Mobile grant, you know, for the Corrales Historical Society. I'm not sure if it's been awarded. We haven't heard yet, but Amy Barnhart obviously stepped in and, you know, quickly helped with that. And then we had an ongoing long-term project to develop a plan for the safety, which is the safety of the parking lot at the old church, which is part of this kind of total renovation. And both of those pieces of technical assistance are incredibly valuable, right? And so those are, you know, very concrete examples of, and they're financially valuable as well. You know, when we ask that question, like how and what, we're not just talking about it. There's a real value to it too. And then that I bring up the service requests and the technical assistance a lot because it's not something that gets a lot of promotion, but again, it's very valuable and it's like true partnership work that I think folks aren't necessarily always familiar with. So just want to, you know, make sure everybody understands that. And Ken Martinez was able to talk about it a little bit, I think 2 meetings ago. So, you know, we work very, very closely with everybody at the Historical Society on a number of different fronts, but that's another good example. So.
And it looks like Scott Parker would like to say a few things.
Yeah, hi. Just a few comments about Harvest Fest. So Harvest Festival is a Kiwanis event, and the purpose of it is to raise funds to provide grants primarily that are given out in Corrales. So literally, as soon as the accounting is over for Harvest Fest, a committee meets of all volunteers. And we solicit requests for grants, and that money is given away. And the only money that's kept is enough money to start Harvest Fest again the following year. So as Harvest Fest, if it grows, then there's more money to be given away within the community for folks that need help. So, you know, you may have dollars coming in from outside the community, but those dollars end up staying in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
I guess that's it.
Okay, great. Well, I think we'll close then. And if you could just put that slide back up that kind of talks about where to find more information. We'll try and get some of that information up on the website as soon as possible. And is there anything else, Sandy, you want to say?
Just a question. Does anybody have any ideas how to get the word out to the people so that they know about it? Because it ain't easy. So share, everybody. Share with your friends and tell your friends to share. It's like Facebook. Maybe we'll put it on Facebook and say to share. I don't know, but it's tough and it's a concern because I understand that we want the information out there, but it's not like we've been working under an umbrella or something. So we need ways to get the word out to people. It isn't because we're being secretive, it's because we run out of ways.
Yes, so just to piggyback off of Sandy, at the beginning of this process, and it's typical for a lot of kind of community planning efforts, is to develop a community engagement plan. And so we did develop a community engagement plan for this process, and it was pretty extensive. More extensive, I would say, than I have done in many communities. The amount of hours that have been spent trying to engage people where they are and not asking them to take time away from their jobs and families has been very much considered in this process. And also trying to form partnerships and networks with the existing stakeholder organizations to share that information out with their networks as well. And so, you know, I think I can honestly say in good faith that we have really tried to get the word out in a much more extensive way in this community than I think I've done in any other community. So I understand that a lot of people will always say that they didn't get the word, they didn't get the message, but there really has been a good faith effort. I've seen many of your faces at many of our meetings, and I really appreciate your participation. And I hope that you're, you know, sharing what you've learned and getting people excited and involved in your community. Because that's part of what keeps a community vibrant and alive is, you know, welcoming others to join you and engaging and doing what makes you feel good in your community. So thank you for being part of this process. And I hope you continue to engage in this process. This is only the beginning. This is not an ending. This is really an exciting opportunity to get involved and to share what you're passionate and care about with respect to arts and culture. So thank you. And we will have that information up for you to look at as soon as we can. Thank you.